Hello! In the dim light of dawn on April 5th, 2004, while most of the people in Stavanger were still deep in sleep, a dark nightmare suddenly descended. A group of masked raiders, donned in bulletproof vests and wielding modern weapons like fully armed phantoms, stormed the cash-counting center with the precision and sophistication of an elite military unit. In a flash of violence and chaos, millions of kroner were swept away in a matter of minutes, marking the largest cash heist in Norwegian history. In that fleeting moment, the lives of many were forever changed, and the city of Stavanger plunged into a state of shock and horror, stunned by the audacity and ruthlessness of the criminals. Behind this terrifying heist was none other than David Tosca, the mastermind whose criminal history stretched back to the 1980s. Linked to the Notorious Twitter gang, Tosca was known for his cunning strategies, making him a persistent nightmare for the police. At his side was Kjell Aurik Schumann, known as the Shadow for his ability to disappear without leaving any trace whenever he operated. These men were no strangers to the criminal world, with a rap sheet that seemed endless. Before the historic NOKAS robbery, there had already been ominous signs of a looming crime spree. The failed robbery at the Norwegian post office in Oslo on October 27th. 2003 was the roar before the storm. Though meticulously planned, but the robbers only managed to seize a fraction of the expected haul due to the delayed arrival of the cash. However, this failed heist was merely the first step in a larger, bolder scheme brewing in the shadows. As winter 2004 drew near, Tosca and his crew meticulously planned every move. They scouted weapon purchase locations and even conducted practice drives to ensure there were no flaws in their escape route. Tosca rented houses in Sands and Stavanger, positioning himself strategically for the operation. Meanwhile, Schumann established a base in Hungvag, creating a solid criminal network, where no detail was overlooked in their preparations. Then the moment of horror arrived. At exactly 8 a.m., the stage was set for the grand performance. A white truck engulfed in flames like a living nightmare distracted the police outside the station. Seizing the moment, the robbers broke into the cash-counting center, smashing through the fortified doors with sledgehammers and specialized tools. Their intent was clear: to steal a massive fortune and vanish without a trace. But the robbers' seemingly flawless plan quickly hit unexpected obstacles. The bulletproof glass at the counting center, which they assumed would be easy to break, proved to be much tougher than anticipated. Each heavy swing of the sledgehammer only made the glass shudder, but it refused to crack. Time ticked away, every second feeling like a drumbeat of tension as the robbers realized they were now 8 minutes behind their original schedule. The pressure mounted as they knew time was no longer on their side. While they struggled with the unforeseen challenges, flashing lights and the blare of police sirens shattered the silence of the church square. Officers Eric Holland and Stefan Nissan, in their Volvo patrol car, screeched to a halt. They quickly took positions, hiding behind cover, ready for the inevitable showdown. Yet in the lurking shadows of chaos, everything unfolded too quickly for anyone to fully comprehend what was happening. Inside the vault, the masked robbers stuffed bags with millions of kroner, and the number kept climbing rapidly, reaching 57.4 million in just a few short minutes. Outside, Kjell Aurik Schumann stepped out of the NOKAS building, unaware that he was about to walk straight into a storm of violence. Only 2 minutes later, the air was thick with tension as undercover officer Fred Schirling, dressed in civilian clothes, confronted Schumann. Schumann coldly pointed his AG-3 rifle at Fred and asked the question that felt like a death sentence. "Who are you?" Fred Schirling stood still, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. With his hands raised high, he hoped for a compromise, but it seemed like fate had already decided. Gunfire erupted like thunder, shattering the peaceful morning air. The robbers and the police clashed in a deadly battle. Bullets whizzed through the air, and flashes of gunfire lit up the scene, turning the bold robbery into a bloody confrontation between the gang and law enforcement. In the midst of the violent hail of bullets, tragedy struck when Police Chief Arne Sig Klungland was shot. A man who had dedicated his life to upholding the law fell instantly, a victim of the senseless violence unleashed by the robbers. His death shocked the entire city, serving as a grim reminder of the high price paid in the defense of justice against ruthless forces. Klungland's sacrifice did not dampen the resolve of the police. On the contrary, it ignited a fierce determination to hunt down the robbers at all costs. An unprecedented manhunt in Norwegian history was launched immediately, with every available resource deployed in relentless pursuit. Yet like ghosts in the night, the robbers vanished before the police could capture them. Along with them disappeared a staggering sum of nearly $10 million, leaving an indelible scar on the city of Stavanger. The once peaceful streets of Stavanger quickly turned into a battleground as police intensified their search for the robbers. No corner was left unchecked, and the entire city was gripped by tension and suspense. The authorities spared no effort in restoring order after the most audacious robbery in Norway's history. Law enforcement launched an unwavering manhunt, using every modern tool available to trace the culprits. Dramatic raids followed one after another, with every suspected house and apartment meticulously searched as though a giant net was tightening around the criminals. Feeling the mounting pressure from the police, the robbers found themselves cornered with no way out. One by one, suspects were arrested in a series of meticulously coordinated operations. With unwavering determination, the police steadily closed in on their target, ensuring that every criminal would be brought to justice. The investigation gradually painted a full picture of the robbery as crucial evidence began to emerge, and each clue became a terrifying piece of the puzzle. Forensic analysis of clothing left at the scene, discarded weapons during the robbers' escape, and surveillance footage from security cameras gradually revealed the identities of those behind the heist. Crucially, DNA traces provided undeniable evidence that quickly sealed the case. One by one, the robbers found themselves with nowhere left to hide as justice closed in. The wheels of justice continued to turn as the suspects were brought to trial, with the entire nation following every dramatic development. The prosecution built a compelling case armed with a mountain of strong evidence and detailed testimonies from witnesses. Surveillance footage captured every moment from the start to the brutal end of the robbery, painting a clear picture of the defendant's guilt. No detail was overlooked, leaving no room for doubt. In the end, justice prevailed, and the robbers faced appropriate sentences, receiving the harshest punishments. In total, 13 individuals were charged, with mastermind David Tosca receiving the longest sentence, 21 years in prison. Tosca, considered the leader of the gang, admitted his role in the robbery, but denied involvement in the death of Officer Klungland. However, his dark past did not stop there, as Tosca faced additional charges related to a bank robbery in Bryn and the Oslo postal heist in 2003. Meanwhile, Johnny Thindrup, another key figure, admitted he was caught in the crossfire during the shootout. His confession not only added more drama to the case, but also revealed previously unknown details. However, the biggest shock came 2 years later when Kjell Aure Schumann, a member of the gang, unexpectedly confessed that he was the one who pulled the trigger, killing Officer Klungland. DNA evidence found on a scarf and a partially burned mattress from the getaway vehicle which they had attempted to destroy linked Schumann to the crime scene. Ironically, the robbers had inadvertently given themselves away by leaving crucial evidence right at the doorstep of the police station. The aftermath of the NOKAS robbery was not just about financial losses, it shook Norway's entire legal system. March 2006 was a dark day for the criminals, as the court sentenced 13 individuals to a combined 181 years in prison. The story didn't end there. With the heaviest sentence, David Tosca still carried with him unanswered mysteries. Was someone else behind this horrifying heist? 1 year later, in January 2007, a new legal storm erupted when the appeals court upheld the verdicts for 12 of the robbers but Thomas Thindrup. The 13th member faced a dramatic turning point. Although he was acquitted by the jury, but Norway's appeal laws allowed the judges to overturn the decision, sending Thindrup back to trial. This immediately ignited a fierce wave of controversy, shaking public trust in the justice system. Eventually, Thindrup faced a new trial and was sentenced to 14 years in prison in September 2007, a dramatic and unpredictable conclusion. However, the story didn't stop there. In June 2007, Norway's Supreme Court added another 27 years to the total sentences for the defendants. Amid the still ongoing debate, Hikmet K., another criminal involved in the heist, continued to adamantly proclaim his innocence. Although the police believed he helped the robbers escape, Hikmet claimed he was only in Stavanger for a drug deal. Despite accepting the sentence, but he consistently expressed regret and appealed, arguing that he was convicted of a crime he didn't commit. The legal battle was not just about justice for the criminals, it also left a tremendous financial burden on Norway. The investigation and prosecution costs reached 160 million kroner, but the stolen money was never fully recovered. Only 7 million kroner of the stolen amount was retrieved, representing a significant loss for the country. The statistics from the case were staggering. In a single event, Norwegian police fired more than 50 shots, nearly two-thirds of the total rounds they had fired in the previous several decades. The 2004 NOKAS robbery wasn't just an ordinary crime, it served as a stark warning about the severity of violence, leaving Norway from Stavanger to other cities gripped with anxiety and fear. The consequences of the robbery were not just about lost money or tarnished reputations. The families of the victims bore the ultimate pain, their lives forever altered by the senseless cruelty of such violence. The tragic death of Police Chief Arne Sigve Klungland left not only an immense sadness, but also a scar that can never be erased from the hearts of the community. The peaceful streets of Stavanger, once a symbol of tranquility, were now shadowed by fear and loss. This event not only exposed weaknesses in law enforcement's security system, but also spurred significant changes. Protective measures were reinforced, and a series of reforms were implemented to ensure that no similar incident could happen in the future. The NOKAS robbery also highlighted the alarming rise of organized crime, underscoring once again that the battle against the criminal underworld remains long and challenging. In the years that followed, the Stavanger community held numerous memorial ceremonies to honor those who had fallen. These solemn events were a tribute to their sacrifice, reminding everyone that although time passes, the memory of the three victims, including Officer Klungland, will never be forgotten. The wounds from the NOKAS robbery have gradually healed. Norway has risen stronger and more united. The lessons from this heist became the driving force behind stricter security measures, better preparing the nation for any future threats. The NOKAS robbery, marked by violence and loss, has become a haunting memory in Norway, reminding the entire country of the fragility of peace and order. The lasting scars left by the robbery will forever serve as a warning about the terrible price of greed and uncontrolled violence. The El Chapo brothers are infamous as some of the most notorious criminals in the drug world, particularly known for being among the most dangerous crime lords globally. El Chapo stood out for his audacity and sharp instincts, entering the drug world at an early age. Thanks to his leadership skills and fearlessness, he quickly rose to become the boss of the infamous Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. Although he was arrested multiple times, but El Chapo's exceptional prison escape abilities kept law enforcement on their toes for years. Nevertheless, every crime eventually meets justice, and El Chapo's reign also came to an end. Born on April 4th, 1957, or December 25th, 1984. According to some sources, the life of this drug lord started in a poor family, where he often suffered from his father's abuse. At the age of 15, El Chapo began working in the forest to support his mother. By the age of 20, realizing that his hometown had no opportunities for a better life, he followed his uncle and joined an organized crime gang. His nickname El Chapo, meaning shorty, was due to his small stature, standing at only about 1.68 meters as an adult. In the 1970s, El Chapo began working for drug lord Hector Palma, overseeing drug shipments and the transport of narcotics near the U.S. border by airplane. Being highly ambitious, El Chapo quickly caught the attention of powerful crime bosses and gradually gained more influence in the criminal organization. El Chapo's working style closely resembled that of the infamous Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. He valued discipline, punctuality, and was willing to kill anyone who dared to betray or oppose him. Those who knew him understood that no matter how tempting an offer might be from competitors, betraying El Chapo was never an option. Thanks to his professionalism and ruthlessness, El Chapo was introduced to Felix Gallardo, one of the most powerful crime bosses in Mexico at the time. Initially, El Chapo worked as a driver for Gallardo, but he gradually moved up, managing warehouses and overseeing drug transportation from Colombia to Mexico. During the 1970 and 1980, Mexico was still a minor transit hub for South American drug traffickers, while the real power was in Colombia. However, by the mid-1980s, U.S. law enforcement increased pressure on drug gangs in the Caribbean, shifting drug trade operations towards Mexico. This development turned Mexico into a major drug trafficking center with immense profits and less interference from the U.S. government. At this time, authorities began infiltrating drug gangs with undercover agents to gather information. One such agent was Kiki Camarena, an American operative who went undercover in the drug cartel of Felix Gallardo, providing key intel that led to raids and the seizure of vast amounts of marijuana from large farms. This enraged Gallardo, and shortly afterward, Kiki Camarena was captured, brutally tortured, and eventually killed. The anger over Kiki's death sparked a massive manhunt by both the U.S. and Mexico to find those responsible. This pursuit unintentionally created an opportunity for El Chapo Guzman to rise and gain more control in the drug trafficking network. By 1989, Felix Gallardo was arrested and his cartel began to crumble. El Chapo quickly took over key drug trafficking routes from Sinaloa to Baja California, extending into the U.S. states of Arizona and California. The U.S. government truly began paying attention to El Chapo in 1987 when they realized he was the real leader of the Sinaloa cartel. A report later revealed that El Chapo had smuggled approximately 2 tons of marijuana and 4,700 kilograms of cocaine into the U.S., generating over $1.5 million in profit. With his sophisticated methods, El Chapo's gang dominated the drug market from Mexico to the U.S., earning him a spot on the list of the world's wealthiest individuals. Initially, El Chapo's cartel controlled just one smuggling route from western Mexico to the U.S. state of Arizona. However, by 1993, his group was transporting up to 3 tons of drugs monthly across the border, particularly into Los Angeles. Cocaine suppliers from Colombia transported their shipments to Mexico using private jets or even as luggage on commercial flights. To move drugs into the U.S., El Chapo and his associates employed various methods such as container ships, fishing boats, speedboats, and even submarines. While marijuana was a common product in Mexico and easy to produce, but it was more easily detected compared to cocaine. Therefore, El Chapo's gang often concealed drugs using extremely ingenious methods. They even used cannons to shoot packages of marijuana from Mexico across the border into Arizona. In the 1990s, as the methamphetamine market exploded in the U.S., the Sinaloa cartel quickly seized the opportunity to capitalize on this lucrative drug. Initially, they offered free samples to attract customers along with promotions like giving away extra methamphetamine when large quantities of marijuana were purchased. As demand grew, the cartel built larger labs capable of producing vast amounts of meth. El Chapo's greatest contribution to his drug empire was orchestrating the construction of sophisticated underground tunnels for smuggling drugs from Mexico into the U.S. One of his most famous tunnels was built in the late 1980s. From the outside, it appeared to be just an ordinary house in the border town of Agua Prieta, but inside it housed a complex mechanical system. A hidden door concealed beneath a foosball table would open to reveal a secret tunnel leading to San Luis, Arizona, when activated by a hydraulic system. When this tunnel was discovered, El Chapo quickly changed tactics. He opened a canning factory in Guadalajara, using pre-packaged food cans to hide cocaine and shipped them to grocery stores in California. He also concealed drugs in tins of pepper and used trains to transport his goods into the U.S. The profits from drug sales were then sent back to Mexico in suitcases stuffed with U.S. dollars. Corrupt customs officers at the airports were bribed, allowing these suitcases to pass through without inspection. By the time El Chapo was captured, the Sinaloa cartel he led had become the most powerful and terrifying force in Mexico. They trafficked tons of cocaine and marijuana into the U.S. by sea, air, and land. Even Southeast Asia became a market for the drugs supplied by this cartel. Thanks to drugs, El Chapo quickly became a billionaire, ranked as the 10th richest person in Mexico with a total fortune of over $1 billion. El Chapo wasn't just a drug lord, he also built an entire transportation empire to support his operations. He was listed by the U.S. Department of the Treasury as the most dangerous drug lord in history, surpassing even Pablo Escobar, and was dubbed the godfather of global drug crime. Moreover, El Chapo's legendary prison escapes only added to his notoriety. In 1993, he was arrested in Guatemala, but in 2001 he escaped by bribing prison guards and hiding in a laundry cart. In 2014, El Chapo was recaptured, but that didn't stop him from maintaining contact with his family and associates. While incarcerated at the Altiplano prison, he secretly ordered the construction of a tunnel leading directly to his cell. The tunnel, more than 1.6 kilometers long, was fully equipped with electricity, ventilation, water, and was completed within a few months. In July 2015, El Chapo successfully escaped once again. To carry out this plan, he spent tens of billions of pesos to bribe the entire prison system and even sent his associates to Germany to study tunneling technology. The fierce battle to capture El Chapo for the final time in 2016 is remembered for its intensity. This battle took place in the quiet town of Los Mochis, in Sinaloa, Mexico, his hometown. One morning in January, under a light drizzle, the Mexican military received information from locals that several gunmen were hiding in a white-painted house. The house and its visitors had been under close surveillance for days, with all phone communications wiretapped. The Mexican government mobilized 17 Special Forces Marines along with anti-drug police and the army to surround the house. El Chapo's side had fewer than 20 men, but they were well-trained and heavily armed. His gunmen spotted the government forces early and began shooting. However, after a brief firefight, the police emerged victorious. Upon entering the house, they found numerous bullet casings and outside 2 armored vehicles along with several heavy weapons. Despite the successful raid, but El Chapo had once again disappeared from the scene as if he had the ability to vanish, prompting a scenario straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. The Mexican government mobilized a large force to hunt him down, including combat helicopters for support. All entry and exit points in the town were sealed off, and the Marine commandos even had to crawl into the sewer system, using flashlights to follow El Chapo's trail for 4 hours. At around 10 p.m., El Chapo emerged from a manhole near Fatima Hospital, approximately 800 meters from the scene. He then stole a Volkswagen Jetta, driving it a few hundred meters before abandoning it. He hijacked a red Ford Focus by threatening its driver at gunpoint at a red light at an intersection. El Chapo drove south, heading toward the Sierra Madre Mountains, where locals once revered him as a Robin Hood. However, in his panic, he mistakenly drove north, toward Highway 15, which connects Los Mochis to Nogales. The owner of the stolen car quickly reported it to the police, and just 10 kilometers from Los Mochis, the Ford Focus was stopped by a police patrol. They immediately subdued El Chapo and took him back into custody. When El Chapo was imprisoned, his cell had concrete walls a meter thick, and he was constantly moved to prevent another escape. The prison was monitored 24/7 with thousands of security cameras, guard dogs, and even tanks and armored vehicles guarding the facility. However, even with these security measures, people were still uneasy about the drug lord nicknamed the King of Tunnels. Eventually, El Chapo was extradited to the U.S. and held under strict surveillance. He was taken to New York for trial, and security around the courtroom was so tight that the area surrounding the courthouse was closed off weekly with police, escort vehicles and helicopters monitoring his journey from the prison to the courthouse. El Chapo's lavish lifestyle was revealed during the U.S. trial on November 27, 2018, when a witness named Miguel Angel Martinez, who had worked under him, testified. According to the testimony, El Chapo's drug trade boomed in the early 1990s, fueling his extravagant lifestyle. El Chapo smuggled tons of cocaine through secret tunnels along the border, hiding drugs in oil tankers with hidden compartments. The massive amounts of money from this operation were transported back to Culiacan, Mexico. Each month, El Chapo's 3 private planes carried an average of $10 million in cash per trip. He also used private jets to fly around Mexico visiting his properties, including a beach house with a private zoo that housed lions, tigers, and black panthers. The zoo even had a small train that transported visitors around the grounds. El Chapo also owned a yacht named Chapito and was known for his extravagant spending. He was particularly generous with women, buying them houses, cars, and expensive jewelry. He loved to travel the world, visiting Las Vegas just to gamble and Switzerland for anti-aging treatments. According to witnesses, El Chapo wielded power equivalent to that of the President of Mexico, a shocking testament to the influence of this notorious drug lord. In January 2020, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador emphasized his determination to end the era of corruption and reform the government system. He took office in December 2018 with a promise to root out corruption which had deeply entrenched itself in Mexico. In his New Year's speech, he reiterated this message, highlighting that significant progress had been made toward this goal. Previously, figures like El Chapo, who held power and influence on par with the president, made cracking down on crime a challenging task. However, that era has come to an end. On July 17, 2019, El Chapo, Mexico's notorious drug lord, was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 30 years. Additionally, he was ordered to pay a $12.6 billion fine, the amount earned from his drug trafficking operations. Earlier in February 2019, a jury at the federal court in New York convicted El Chapo of multiple charges, including trafficking cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana into the U.S. over a span of 25 years, as well as money laundering, illegal possession of firearms, and involvement in criminal organizations. All these charges carried life sentences. Prosecutors also requested the judge impose an additional 30-year sentence for El Chapo's use of weapons in criminal activities and demanded that he pay fines based on his drug trafficking revenue. Following his sentencing, El Chapo is expected to serve his time in the highest security federal prison in Colorado, a supermax facility from which no one has ever escaped. Attorney Gerald Shargel also confirmed that El Chapo would be held at Supermax, a place renowned for its strict security, considered the toughest prison in the U.S. How do you feel about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below for everyone to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.